If you're anything like me, you're probably wondering how virtual or augmented reality could possibly enhance the JRPG experience, or maybe even react with outright skepticism. I know that I certainly did, but when Square Enix reached out with an offer to help me take my first steps into VR so I could tell you about my experiences, well, how could I possibly say no? So, huge thank you to Square Enix for sending me this MetaQuest 3S and sponsoring my first look into what VR could bring to the JRPG genre. Follow the link in this video's description to learn more. In July of 2018, Square Enix unleashed the world's first ever HD 2D RPG, Octopath Traveler, changing the landscape of pixel art RPGs forever. By moving the classic-inspired 2D pixel art sprites back into a 3D space, Square Enix unlocked a new way forward for pixel art to not only survive, but thrive in the modern gaming landscape. The impact that this has had on the RPG space has been incredible to observe as an enthusiast in the space, and we've been blessed with a wealth of beautiful RPGs in this HD 2D style ever since, with the likes of Triangle Strategy, Octopath Traveler 2, and the Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake. And while not exactly HD 2D itself, the inspiration this has had on games like Star Ocean: The Second Story R can be felt. But just as Square Enix was the first to move on this HD 2D style and revolutionize the way we play pixel art RPGs by moving them into a 3D space, they've now taken it a step further, this time by adding even more dimensionality to Triangle Strategy, and the whole experience has taken me aback. I had no idea what business a 2D turn-based RPG had in virtual reality. I envisioned 1,000 reviews telling me, you actually feel like a pixel, and with no basis for comparison, I think that healthy skepticism was reasonable. The sum total of turn-based RPGs in VR that I was aware of is essentially 0 before Triangle Strategy VR. Now, I've taken a look at the footage I was able to capture for this video, and I think it bears mentioning that this is obviously just does not do the game justice. Taken at face value, this maybe looks like someone just took some Triangle Strategy gameplay and added a found footage shaky cam filter to it. Brilliant, well done, good job. But that's because obviously you're still looking at this on a computer screen or a phone screen, and the obviously best way to view footage of Triangle Strategy on a computer or phone screen is by playing the game on a computer or phone. So I've done my best to stabilize the footage as best as I can. I don't have a big production studio that will allow me to green screen myself into the game or whatever. In this unique case, instead of just letting the gameplay footage speak for itself to tell you how beautiful the experience is, I'm gonna have to try and step in and channel my best writing and curate my best moments and explain to you why it is that I think this is actually a huge deal. Now, did I mention yet that this is my very first actual VR experience? Like, aside from that whole brief Google Cardboard flash in the pan from a decade ago? So take everything I have to say with a big old grain of salt, but when I envision what VR or augmented reality is good at doing is putting you in a different space, taking you to a different place, or putting you in the body of an in-game avatar, giving you a first-person perspective within the world. But augmented reality does something a bit different. It doesn't so much as remove you from your room as it changes your room or puts things into your space. As the name implies, it augments your reality. Or in the case of Triangle Strategy VR, the game actually puts Triangle Strategy into your room, in the scale of like a tabletop war game, complete with the same scale as minifigures, with pixel art dioramas that completely fill my filming studio. And that would be neat enough by itself, but by using a grabber button on the Quest or whatever it's called, you can grab the whole diorama and move it around you. You can zoom way in and get an awesome look at the world map in incredible detail beyond what you could ever do on a computer screen. You can walk around in your space and gain a different vantage point of the combat map without having to move the camera because you are the camera. You can get yourself a real sense of space. You actually feel like a pixel. I always thought that VR and AR was about immersion, and maybe to some degree a lot of it is. The ideal way to plug yourself into a computer and the real world melts away. And how are you going to immerse yourself in a 2D pixel world, or even a 3D pixel world, as it were? Immersive is honestly not the word I would use to describe this experience. I lied earlier when I said I felt like a pixel. I didn't actually feel much like a pixel at all. But even so, my first VR/AR experience in a turn-based RPG felt wholly unique. Immersion to me did not feel like the goal, but what it introduced was something just as unique and novel, bringing something tactile into the tactical RPG. And the feeling like you're actually able to reach in and pick up a character and just place them right there on my shelf. I actually did try that at one point. Sadly, he snapped right back onto the bounds of the gameplay area, but for a brief moment in time, I was able to hold something from a pixel art RPG in my hands. The inner collector in me that loves the idea of having something to hold on to have an object to project my thoughts and joys and loves and experiences with the game onto that piece of physical media, the inner monkey brain of mine that likes and wants things was, I think, for the briefest of moments, satisfied with this new concept. Like the apes who discovered the monolith of the beginning of that Space Odyssey movie, something primal was appeased and reveled in being able to not necessarily be that pixel art guy myself, but to see the doors of opportunities and possibilities swing wide open. Envisioning a world in which maybe I could take a sprite with me when I'm done playing a game and put them in my physical space. Keep a piece of legendary loot with me from Final Fantasy and display it next to my Keyblade in my augmented reality sword rack, along with a plethora of trophies that I've earned. I know that I'm full swing in the honeymoon phase of my time with augmented reality and VR, and I know that I have unwittingly just stepped foot into another hobby that threatens to consume all of my life, energy, and money if I allow it to. But something about this has stuck, I think. And I'm incredibly interested in seeing how else the world of VR and AR can work together with the turn-based RPGs I've just dedicated the last 10 years of my life to. Triangle Strategy has opened my eyes to one possible future for gaming for me, and has me incredibly excited to see more RPGs coming down the pipeline. I should step back and set some additional expectations here and now, though. Square Enix in the game itself recommends that you play this game in a seated position, and to that end, I think that makes a lot of sense to play it that way, but I just couldn't help myself but get up and walk around and bend and twist and get hands-on as I could for the experience. I've heard that a lot of games will recommend that you play them sitting down, at least to start with, because it's less likely to cause motion sickness in people. I must have guts of steel though, because I was up and moving in no time, even with the very occasional hitch that was probably caused by the MetaQuest 3S streaming my audio and video to OBS for video capture. It should also be mentioned that any frame drops I've seen in my capture are just a factor of still learning how to use the Quest 3S for video capture. I'm a newbie here and probably did everything wrong, but in this game, it was a smooth experience to my eyes at least. And one thing that I also learned is that playing on my Quest 3S has definitely enforced a policy of taking more breaks and short rests between sessions, partially to give my face a break from some of the pressure that the 3S has been placing on it, partially for recharging the Quest's battery, which will play Triangle Strategy for a solid 90 minutes, probably more if you're not also live streaming the gameplay to your computer. These limitations are honestly probably enforcing some healthier gameplay habits though, so it's hard to complain about. That said, I've already bought a much longer charging cable to help me bypass these limitations, for better or worse. And I think it bears repeating that this is a first look into Triangle Strategy VR, and it's not meant to be a review. But even so, I do have some feedback about the 3 modes featured within the game. Exploration mode and battle mode are incredibly well done, and it makes full use of the Quest 3S headset. No notes. The third mode is the story mode though, and it feels a little jarring. These are the cutscenes, the narrative connective tissue that links everything together. These are shown to you as if you were watching a very large TV, but displaying a 2D movie on a 2D plane is one of those things that the Quest 3S struggles to do well. There are some strange jaggies that occur around the straight-edged graphics and text that makes reading along a little difficult. I feel like I was in a virtual space watching a beautiful diorama with crisp edges, and then suddenly I was watching a movie over a single yellow composite video cable. If instead it was showing me these cutscenes like they were made for a TV using 3D glasses, that would have probably completely alleviated that aliasing, which I think is caused by the Quest 3S's Fresnel lenses, concentric circles. And if you, dear viewer, just heard this last paragraph in this sponsored video, that means that Square Enix reviewed the script and the video and left it in because they know how good Triangle Strategy VR is and are confident that you're going to want to play it anyway. And I think that speaks volumes. Getting hands-on with Triangle Strategy VR has been a truly eye-opening experience. I've always been VR curious and watched from the sidelines because I felt like, as a turn-based RPG fan, it seemed like a neat concept that just wasn't applicable to my interests. This gives me the perfect excuse to finally dip my toes into another reality. But now Square Enix have once again forged a new way forward for 2D pixel art RPGs with Triangle Strategy VR. This whole experience has sent me down a virtual rabbit hole, so to speak. And I think that I'll definitely be making some follow-up videos about VR on the MetaQuest 3S and some tangentially related experiences that I've been coming across outside of Triangle Strategy. So be sure to get subscribed so you don't miss that. Oh, and if you have any ideas of what I should look at in VR next, be sure to let me know. Now, I understand that one turn-based RPG by itself on the MetaQuest isn't going to convince you to buy a headset, but if this is a sign of things to come, I want you all to take note and keep your eyes out for more coming down the pipeline, because just as Square Enix forged that HD 2D path forward for modern platforms with Octopath Traveler, they may have also shown us all the start of what turn-based RPGs could look like in virtual and augmented reality. And to me, it looks pretty incredible. And for everyone here who already has a MetaQuest headset, well, you really ought to give this one a try. Follow the link in this video's description and find out what the first of its kind RPG can feel like in VR. Thanks again to Square Enix for sponsoring today's video.